Thank God it's Friday. We are gradually coming to the end of the week. In another 2-3 hours for us here, it will be the end of the week on Breakfast Central. But thank you so much for starting the week with us and for wrapping up the week with us as well. We have so many big stories we're looking at this morning. I am Olive MOD.
And I'm Joe Hanson, welcoming you to Breakfast Central. 3 hours of nothing more than the latest, the biggest, and of course, incisive stories. Looking at the analysis as well concerning what took place in Lagos a few days ago, not forgetting to the latest story concerning the FCT minister as he's talking tough. But I'm going to pass it over to Benga as he also tells us what he thinks about the 3 hours.
Bonjour, my colleagues. You guys are doing very well.
Yeah,
multilingual. I'm multilingual. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Breakfast Central. It's Friday, so we let our hair down. If you've noticed the trend on Fridays, Joe and I don't wear ties.
No.
Try to, tone down the vibe a bit from all the seriousness of the week. And it's been one tough week, especially for residents of Lagos. We have so many news for you, and another triumphant victory. It's been a week of victory for the woman king in Kogi State. She had a helicopter victory, now she has an INEC victory. We'll get into details of all of that and more. I am Benga Bora. Welcome to Breakfast Central.
All right, welcome to the show, everyone. Too many stories to be looked at this morning, but like Benga has said, we'll start off with the story about victory. INEC has rejected the petition recall by a certain group of people, because I won't call them the constituents of Kogi State now, because now we will look at those people, the fact that the massive support that Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan got yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, when she went to spend some time with her people, and then seeing the fact that now INEC has said you didn't meet Section 69 requirements for the recall to actually happen. And she, of course, has been rejoicing. She has granted interviews. Her and her team is celebrating, really. So I would say congratulations to her. Is it over yet? Is it Uhuru? We do not know. Because it feels like when one door closes, another door opens when it comes to this political
I think
drama.
with regards to the recall, it's over. You can't be wasting INEC's time. And there's a school of thought that thinks that if INEC got to the verification stage, then they will have to file charges against those who bought the petition in the first place, because there's widespread allegations of impersonation and fraud. And you can't be doing that. It's a criminal offense. You can't be wasting time and resources of INEC. So they would check that. And it depends on, like you said, it's not yet, it might not yet be Uhuru, because she's against very formidable opponents, and they might want to perfect and do better with the numbers, and maybe try again later. But I wouldn't want to believe they'll do that.
Well, it kind of like reminds me of when you make a phone call and then you hear the number you have tried.
It's not reachable.
It's not reachable. Try again later. So like you said, it's not yet Uhuru. They might want to try again later. But the dynamics here for everyone is to look at the fact. I'm happy we're going to have a conversation with a representative from INEC. Part of the questions I would love to, throw at her is INEC going to do anything to the constituents, in quotes, those who forged signatures? Because INEC has the power to actually prosecute electorates or anyone who has, engaged in fraud, especially which has got to do with
visa applications. Yeah? If you tender a visa application with false documents, it's a criminal offense.
Of course.
Against you.
Of course. So that's what we're going to look at. But for Natasha, I'm going to say it's not over yet, just to say that clearly. This political wrangle will continue, especially with what a legal advisor had said, that she shouldn't have mentioned names when she was there in our constituent, or talking about.
But she says that she has very strong proof.
Exactly. You saw her interview last night.
Yeah.
In line with that, she also released a statement yesterday as well that she would soon prove the allegation, that she has it, and she would soon prove.
The Senate President that she hears that he wants to sue her. So she urges him to go ahead.
I mean, when you speak like that as a lawyer, and she also said as a reasonable human being, that means she's done her homework. She's very confident in the evidence she has. And we spoke to Kingsley Fanwo yesterday, the Information Commissioner of Kogi State. He doesn't seem like he's extending an olive branch. He said he made reference to the Truth and Reconciliation committee in South Africa that she has to say the truth, ask for forgiveness, then they can begin the talks of reconciliation. So I think daggers are still drawn on both sides.
On a much lighter note, this thing you just did of extending my hand, you know, I almost wore an olive shirt today. It would have been so fitting if I wore the olive shirt.
You're already the olive brand. Let me extend it again. Olive brand.
But well, for now, the recall conversations have been put on pause. But there's still other angles, like we mentioned earlier, because she's made really strong allegations against the Senate President, the Governor of Kogi State, and the ex-Governor of Kogi State. And these allegations might need to be proved in court. So we'll be following up with the story and bringing update. But for now, I think she can sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee and just, you know, let her hair down.
Yeah. Because
it's been back to back for her. Yeah. But let's move on to this next story, looking at Lagos. Seeing as we came here yesterday and started the show with anger and vexation, we were complaining bitterly. We demanded a video apology from all the parties involved, the Lagos State government, the federal government, the deputy director that put out that press statement. We demanded apologies from all of them. And we are glad to say that they have apologized. At least two have apologized. The federal government has apologized. The state government has apologized.
It means they're very responsive to citizens' call. They also watch Breakfast Central. We need to add that because they were very vocal about it. And nobody should go through that experience again. I can imagine how both of you were traumatized. Hunger, discomfort, pressed to answer the call of nature, and so many other things. Waste of time. And that you made it to work yesterday. It took my respect. My respect for you guys was already.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. But there seems to be controversy even in the apology. We're going to take a look at the apology that was made by the governor of Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. He actually went to the site where the construction was, taking place, and he had a lot to say. But let's take a look at what he had to say.
In some part of the area for just a couple of weeks, and be able to plan your journey time and be able to see what are the alternatives you can bring about, ensure that you can communicate, you can do work from home, work remotely, just to ease the traffic and just to ease all of us coming out. If you don't need to come out at 7 o'clock, wait till 10 o'clock. Let the people that need to come out at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, let them come out. You defer your time 2-3 hours, so they can see that even the approach from Marina to Victoria Island is free. There's no, on the counter on this bridge, there's no movement at all. We're also thinking of another alternative. Can we do a counter flow from here? We're looking at that, but it also needs a lot of excavation. We are going to break a lot of things, and we don't know if that also will be fully effective, but we will consider that in the next 1 or 2 days and see the effect of a counter flow. Well, with all due respect to my brother, my friend, the Honorable Minister, we are the ones on ground right here, and you can see for yourself. It's not about name mention or blame game or anything. We are in the same government, and we know that the intendment are good intentions. Like I keep saying, it is because there is a disaster for over 3 years. If you have a contract for over 3 years and you've not been able to fully implement the thing, if anything happens, you will be one of the people that will say that, why did you not take this difficult decision? Everybody wants a bridge. Nobody wants it in front of his house. That's always a, but if you take a decision that we need to build a bridge, we have to build a bridge, irrespective of if it's in front of your house. That's the solution. You come in here, you're seeing that they've started in the past 2-3 days. They've done a lot of excavation. In fact, we're looking at water right underneath. So even for them to attempt to want to bring that back, it will take 2 weeks.
To man and lady, I want to ask you guys, what changed? Why did the situation improve yesterday?
Yesterday, there was no traffic when we were going back. This morning, the road looked very smooth. I think what happened yesterday was that Nigerians were tired. A lot of persons, I know at least about 2 to 3 persons who had, called their offices and said, listen, I just need to take a day off. And they said, that's fine, you could take the day off. I think if you calculate that in numbers, you might say the mindset of people is, I don't want to go through this anymore. Let me just stay back. That possibly that's one.
I definitely agree with you in that a number of people didn't go to work yesterday. Many people also didn't drive because you're thinking to yourself, if I'm going to be stuck in this traffic with my fuel, I don't want to experience this again. So that might have been one angle. The other angle, of course, would be that there were now more people who were road safety officials who were then apportioned to different parts of the state to ensure that traffic is sort of being properly managed. Because yesterday I saw a number of road safety officials and even policemen that were directing traffic. This was something that we did not even see even one road safety person on the day of this menace. Yeah. So I think that these may have been some of the positive steps in the right direction. And even maybe the news, I don't know if the fake news of the bridge being quote unquote opened may have impacted. I don't know if that may have impacted.
I agree. Another thing we should look at is in that statement, the governor had made it clear that he was on ground and he's the one who experienced what took place, especially in the state. At that time, while he was making that statement, the Minister of Works was not around, but we do hear that he had to fly in immediately.
On the orders of Mr. President.
Exactly, on the orders, like he said, and then there was a counter reaction to what the governor had said. Another thing people are taking seriously with a pinch of annoyance is the fact that the governor also mentioned in that video we just saw that you don't need to come out early. You can take turns.
If you have nothing to
do, but we all know this is Lagos. If you have to be in Ikeja, like have to be at work.
You think people really want to spend money, buy expensive petrol to move out if they don't have any business?
Yes.
So I think it's more of also pushing for people to work from home, which is sort of what we have said.
So can we do this show from home?
That'd be great. I have a nice corner in my living room.
We're very special. We're broadcasters.
No, please. I don't mind.
I don't understand.
A nice corner.
Are you for
my living room?
Do you have all this expensive equipment in your house?
I have. Ring lights gadgets
and black magic.
I mean, Nigerians can enjoy my conversation as I follow, and our guests, we can decide to do a little virtual.
What happens to our producers?
Our producers will produce from home. They'll
produce from home. Okay.
Then all of us will make sure that you either have your spouses or your assistants.
We are trying to
behind
implement
the
governors.
Lakume and Amazing will be in the store as the MCR or in the kitchen.
Well, but the good news so far is the roads have been free as at the last reports that we have. We don't know what today will look like.
We don't know yet.
So let's hope.
We don't know yet.
Today is as free as yesterday
the counterclaims. The counterclaims now comes to the front.
I'm sure
let's take a look at this.
If we're to do this properly, there will be a different kind of method statement would have deployed and wouldn't have necessitated to total closure. And even if we're going to close, we would have done it in such a way that we take 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we would have put in place the remedial work that will be necessary. So what we are doing now is to restore the bridge temporarily within the next 3 days. By Sunday, this place will be totally open. And then after 2 weeks, we will look at the settlement. And then we will take out 3 days to put the permanent structure. That is what we're going to do.
Well, some good news Sunday. There. Yes. So what happened to the 2 months?
So that's what we are saying. Is it Sunday or is it going to be the next 2 months?
I think if they use this method, which is what people are used to, what they did with the Third Mainland Bridge, you segment and you use the hour, you time it, it's going to extend beyond 2 months if care is not taken. But I like the fact that both the federal and the state have come together to speak, even though there's also a part of that video where the minister had said that usually you don't just open, you don't work like this. In other words, he threw Lagos State in codes under the bus by saying that he wasn't aware.
How convenient
and so on.
is it?
I mean, that video, I know we have that video though.
Works is not aware of major repair like this. And he also blamed the controller that she went ahead to initiate the closure.
Has she given us apology though? She's the only person that's not yet given us apology.
The governor has done that on her behalf.
Okay, the governor has done that on her behalf. Okay, we'll forgive her.
Her superior has done that on her behalf.
Okay, in that case, we'll forgive her.
Anyway, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this.
We designed the rehabilitation, but unfortunately, when the bridge was to be closed, I was not informed. The controller did that on her own, and it's very unfortunate because for a bridge to be closed, especially in Lagos, as you know, has been the tradition, I should be informed as the minister And we should also have studied the implication of it, even though it's an emergency situation. We would have deployed emergency evaluation of the implication of closing the bridge. Was there any other thing we would have done? And then while we take time to do the proper work. And so I use the opportunity to warn all controllers and engineers all over the country, never you close the road or close any bridge without running it through the PAM Secretary, who will seek for the permission from the Honorable Minister of Works. And so there will be consequences, disciplinary action for this.
There will be
Consequences for, closing the bridge?
Maybe suspension, because if, let's take what it says for face value. The minister won't say what he doesn't know. And so the controller is responsible for all of the sufferings of Lagosians 2 days ago, and there will be consequences. I hope they will communicate the consequences she'll be facing to Nigerians, because we deserve to know. This should never happen again, and it's really terrible miscommunication between the federal and the state government, that they're not even aligned when it comes to issues like this.
Great one, great one. Anyway, let's move away from that story now, and as Nigerians continue to heave a sigh of relief, not being in traffic yesterday and this morning, we can tell you, for now, let's also tell you quickly that the FCT minister has eventually come out to dispel rumors that was indeed circulating a few days ago. Now, if care is not taken, you may have come across that story. Now, what's the story? Social media was agog with news that the federal FCT minister, while he was inspecting, a few construction works at construction sites, slumped and was rushed and was told to leave the country to receive proper medical care and attention. In short, some of the tweets were very, I must say, horrible.
Nasty.
Horrible. In as much as you do not like someone,
you don't wish death upon a fellow man.
Come on. People are saying there were statements that he's not able to move his right hand anymore. He may not be able to walk, and a cross section of Nigerians, not all, because I know. We're not like that. The Twitter keypad warriors, ex-warriors, were busy saying, "Oh, I wish he would never do this anymore," and so on. But the FCT minister has finally decided to say, "Okay, I've commissioned some of these jobs. I've looked at the progress. Now it's time for me to attend to this." In quotes, so-called statement. Remember, his essay had already tweeted. Larry had said that Oga is walking now. Which one is this story you guys are, peddling. Circulating and peddling around and so on? But he finally had this to say. Let's take a look at it.
I don't want to give credence to people who are only interested in carrying rumor. First of all, the human being, it is not a ghost that will collapse. It's human beings that will collapse if there's any problem in their health. Unfortunately, I did not collapse. I didn't shed inside that I had any health problems. Let me tell you what happened. What happened was that you see that the former head of service of River State government came out to let the public know what was going on. We had a plan to bomb the House Assembly complex. I had a plan to attack national assets. In order to divert attention from people not focusing on that, they have to bring one rumor that they have been flown overseas. There was another time I collapsed, there was another time anybody took me to. I thank Nigerians for being, for really worried that this should be, but people should not wish their fellow human beings such a thing to happen. We know that we will die one day. Nobody will remain in this world forever.
Wow. Never miss an opportunity for politicking, not even when you're inspecting projects. There's still that 1 minute, 2 minutes to drop a few jabs and sprinkle some politics.
Address all the haters that are expected. But to be honest, you can have your grouse with people, but sometimes we take it a little too far. Sometimes, okay, there's a case that comes to mind. I don't know if I should mention this, but I think we do take it too far sometimes. So it's two ways. We need to be a bit more empathetic, but politicians also need to remember that whilst they're in office, power is transient, it would not always be permanent, and that the legacy you would leave behind will be what people will speak about of your life and of your time in office when you're gone. So I'm hoping that these thoughts, it's just that nothing concerns Nigerian politicians with legacy. Nothing concerns
not all of them. People remember
they don't care about that. It's just like, whilst we're here, let's have us as much as we can.
When you look back at some of the politicians who still have their names written indelibly, especially in hearts of some Nigerians, you find out that they are mostly the older generation of
people
politicians. Yes. Exactly, that's what I was going to. There's no how. You have bus stops named after them. You have roads named after them. You know, Tunde Braithwaite. You have them. There are names like that. That you remember. Oh, these people were known for what they did. They were this. They were that. But these days, I think the politicians are basically, hey, let's just go there. Let's make a change. And you ask, where is the change? You barely see it. But I think Wike has been able to dispel these rumors. He's made it clear. In other words, he's told you, in quotes, if you're a hater, that he's doing well and good.
Let's please tone down the insults and the rhetorics on social media. You can hardly go through a story, 3 lines, and the next thing you see is insults like verbal abuses, curses. We're better than this. I mean, who raised some of you people? And you don't want the government to, we should self-regulate. You don't want the government to use this opportunity to say, okay, we're going to clamp down and you lose some of your freedoms because you can't use social media responsibly. Let's all take charge and be responsible in our use.
Absolutely. I agree.
With these few points of ours, we hope that we've been able to convince and not confuse you that it will be a great show. Let's share with you our top stories this morning. This morning on Breakfast Central, David Umahi counters Governor Sanwo-Olu over bridge closure. One person says Sunday, another one says the next 2 months. We have to find a way around it. INEC declares recall petition against Senator Natasha inadequate. They say in no reach. And away from that, we'll be assessing the National Assembly's image crisis, joined by Solomon DeLong to explore this conversation. And back to the drawing board, another interesting analysis will be made by Joe Hansen. And then we'll bring you the newspaper front pages, where we open the phone line so you can call in, and we have our in-house analyst joining us. Stick around. As part of the ongoing National Police Week celebrations, the Nigerian Police Force has vowed to reduce crime rates by 50% across the country. This announcement came during a crucial town hall meeting with Borno State communities held in Maiduguri, which aimed to address the growing security concerns in the region. News Central's Imaro Kirawa was there and now brings this report.
The town hall meeting here brought together police officials, community leaders, youth groups, and other stakeholders to discuss strategies for combating crime in Nigeria's northeast state of Borno.
Crimes, just as they could happen within communities, could happen within the cyberspace. Sometimes it could begin within the cyberspace and then escalate and become a full-blown community, crisis. So that was why one of the highlights of this particular event, especially for the youth wing, we tried as much as possible to bring the attention of the Borno State Police Command Force on the issue of cybercrime, especially the use of TikTok for mobilizing young people, especially for crime, but also other illicit activities that are happening within the social media space.
We are concerned about the welfare of the police. We are concerned about the equipment of the police. If it will be upgraded to the modern equipment so that it will ease their work, then we are supposed to furnish them with the necessary information as at when due.
Ashir kamse sautia wanda dibijini masulu kam wane shima ashirar sudura falla saba awande klewa sele wanda.
Speaking at the event, the Commissioner of Police for Borno State, Mohammed Yusufu, emphasized the importance of local partnerships to curb criminal activity.
The whole idea is to have a two-way communication system. The police cannot police without the community. One of the vision of IG is people-centric, that the police should be seen to be low human rights compliance. They should also, part of the strategic vision of IG within the year 2025, the IG wants the commissioners of police and all other tactical teams to work assiduously to reduce crime by 50%.
Leaders expressed support for the initiative acknowledging the security challenges, including terrorism and banditry, that have plagued the region.
The issues of crime is still going on. We still have some hoodlums in hideouts. There are still some areas where we still have issues of theft that is going on. The police cannot be everywhere, but we have to also put our heads together to say that we support the police.
Rape, sexual-based violence, drug abuse, among other crimes, is what the police plans to tackle. To enhance community relations, the police has begun medical outreach, sanitation of some selected areas within Maiduguri, among other initiatives. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Very interesting initiative there by the Nigerian Police Force. We think we need more of this, especially holding a town hall meeting with people who are very, very important, talking about the residents and those who live within the community and area. But away from that story now, let's go into another interesting story. We touched on it when we started off the show, but let's tell you that Nigeria's Minister of Works, David Umahi, says he was unaware of the decision to close the Independence Bridge in Lagos. And this comes after the Federal Controller of Works in Lagos, Olukorede Kesha, had on Monday announced the closure of the bridge for essential maintenance and rehabilitation works. Kesha added that the bridge would remain closed until the end of May.
The closure, however, resulted in hours-long gridlock with commuters and motorists stranded on Wednesday in the Victoria Island area of Lagos following the public outcry that trailed the gridlock. Minister Dave Umahi ordered the immediate reopening of the bridge, noting that he was not aware of the closure.
We designed the rehabilitation, but unfortunately when the bridge was to be closed, I was not informed. The controller did that on her own, and it's very unfortunate because for a bridge to be closed, especially in Lagos, as you know, it's been the tradition, I should be informed as the minister, and we should also have studied the implication of it, even though it's an emergency situation. We would have deployed emergency evaluation of the implication of closing the bridge. Was there any other thing we would have done? And then while we take time to do the proper work. And so I use the opportunity to warn all controllers and engineers all over the country. Never you close the road or close any bridge without running it through the PAM Secretary, who we seek for the permission from the Honorable Minister of Works. And so there will be consequences, disciplinary action for this.
Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the governor of Lagos State, said the state government will take full responsibility for the gridlock. The governor also apologized to residents for the gridlock experience due to the rehabilitation of the bridge. Join us now to discuss. This is Public Affairs Analyst Professor Simeon Na. Warm welcome to you, Professor, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Thank you very much.
Now, the obvious question is whose table does responsibility fall on? Who bears the responsibility for the hellish traffic Lagosians went through 2 days ago?
Well, the Lagos State governor has taken responsibility, but it will be pertinent to say here that that bridge was not closed by the Lagos State governor. It was the controller of works, federal controller of works, that did that. You can hear the minister saying that it is not right for any controller of works. In fact, he gave a warning to all the controller of works in all the states that they don't take such decisions without getting in touch with the PAMSEC and with him. That tells you the level of decadence in this country. People just do things anyhow, without recourse to any law, without recourse to any authority. In same countries, they would have given maybe 1 2 weeks notice that this road will be closed for maintenance work. Now,
what difference would it have made if the controller had communicated to the minister?
It would have made a whole lot of difference. There would have been arrangements, alternative routes. When you close roads like that, you give intels to people, look, this road will be shut down, and they are going to use these alternative roads. So people will be aware. Information is important. Information rules the world today. So it's very, very key that people should have been told that a lot of people left the house without knowing that there's going to be gridlock. Can you imagine somebody getting to his or her house by 2 a.m., 3 a.m.? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. In a sense, society, some people would have been fired by now. Not rhetorics.
Who are the people that would have been fired by now?
Control of works should have gone. It should have gone, for taking laws into his hands. There was no communication anywhere. I don't think he even liaised with the Lagos State governor. I don't think so. Because if we had done that, maybe at least they would have found a way of telling people that we are closing these roads. These are alternative routes you can take. That's what normally happens.
But they would say that was put in place already, because we do recall that on the 18th, when they said the roads would be closed of March, they had mentioned this slightly. But then again, the papers did carry it that very soon the Independence Bridge will be closed for repairs. Maybe what we're talking about here, the Federal Controller of Works, Mrs. Olukoyede Kesha, possibly in this video we just saw, didn't allow the Minister of Works to know what was going to be done.
Let's put this
so should we put the blame on her?
Let's put the thing in perspective. What is very soon? Very soon is vague. It's a vague statement that politicians and administrators use. When they know they don't want to do anything, they will tell you as soon as possible. That's the way it runs. So very soon is no time. It's vague. As far as I'm concerned, very vague. Okay, very soon they just woke up one morning and they shut down the bridge. Yes, understandable, that bridge is one of the oldest bridges that we have in this Lagos. And it needs that maintenance. And okay, look at what is going on forth and back between the two of them. The minister said they should close the work immediately. He said, no, we cannot do that because already we have removed some of the...
Yes, as you can see.
Some of the slabs already. So it's not possible that the work can stop. Now, you see lack of communication. You see lack of coordination. There's nobody coordinating anything. Everybody stays in his cocoon, takes any decision, and feels they can run with it. No, countries are not run this way. So this is madness.
On whose table or does the responsibility lie in deciding how the bridge, the repair of the bridge will function? Because we are hearing the governor telling us that if you don't have anything to do on the island, don't come to the island, work from home, look for alternatives. And then we're hearing the minister telling us that they would, I think, close the bridge on Sunday, or they open the bridge on Sunday. So we're hearing, it does seem like we're not quite sure who should be in charge of the modalities for the repair.
That's what I'm telling you now. There's no, you see, they're just going forth and back. The truth of the matter is that that's a federal road. So it's a minister that has to take charge of that road. The buck stops on his table. So, but you have seen recently that even state governors are doing some federal roads. We even read in one of the news items that the state governor had an arrangement with an organization to do that repair. However, we know how it runs here, that when a state governor does that, he gets a refund from the federal government. And I recall vividly during the bribery regime that he stopped that because he said they were inflating the contract sum. So, but let's put this in a perspective now. Yes, the bridge needs to be rejigged, but proper things had to be done. The first thing that should have been done was to give information between this date and this date. Look at him saying from now to May. Does it make sense to a right-thinking person? No, it doesn't. That for 1 month plus, you shut down Lagos. That's what it means.
I mean, they've closed third mainland bridge.
You shut down Lagos.
For
That's what it means.
For a longer period.
Let's also look at it. They had mentioned this, that the bridge will be closed for 2 months. They had said for the next 2 months, that bridge will be closed. I think for clarity's sake, we're trying to find out what are the processes. When you say closed, does that mean that there will be no passage within that area, no way, and everybody is to be diverted to a particular place? And what happens? Are we going to have a repetition of what we just went through 2 days ago? I think that's something we should really look at.
No, what we should be looking at now is a solution, because I want to. Okay, let me leave that because of what will come out of it. Let me just leave that. But what I'm trying to say, no, I wanted to give a proverb. But some people will see it as, that one shouldn't have said that kind of thing in a national television.
That's fine.
So that's why I say, let me leave that.
All right.
You see, in my place, when there's a problem, okay, let me just say, Henry Ford said, don't complain, look for solution, because every idiot can complain. Complain is something everybody can do. But when there's an issue, look for solution. What is the way out? That's what they should come about, not throwing tantrums. This one will talk his own, the other one will come and talk his own. No. Let them give a solution to the problem. You are talking of, I will go look at the bridge. Nobody can pass that bridge as it is now. Nobody can do that.
But the minister is saying, maybe by Sunday, it should be reopened to some vehicular traffic, and then repair works will be going on simultaneously.
I don't know
how that will pan
maybe under the bridge or the structures.
You see, what normally happens is that when you do this type of thing, this is not the first time Lagos State is shutting down bridges. But they will give alternative routes. They tell people ahead of time, now we are going to do this within this period. There are alternative routes. People that are coming from
they have given in fairness to Lagos.
After the problem. No, these things should come before the problem, not after. So as an afterthought.
I think they had given it before.
I think they
did
before.
It just wasn't widely circulated as much as people would have. We're not very much aware about it. And it probably didn't generate this much noise. So I think the question now is, seeing the challenge with communication, how better can we manage the communication between the government and the citizens so that we don't get into a situation?
That's because you said they gave it out earlier. If you write a memo and leave it on a table, have you sent out a memo?
Yeah, but a few press, media houses had published that this bridge will be closed for 2 months. Alternative routes are, if you're going to VI, you can't follow Zumambadi way, you can't follow this, you have to follow this area. I mean, we also have that press release.
Was it given the publicity that was needed?
That is where we may.
Such a thing, you don't just talk it in one corner of a newspaper. No, you would have taken maybe the front page of the papers. You would have some of the television stations, like your station, and 1 or 2 other stations would have, made people to know about it. You see, I have problem at times with the way Lagos State communicate information like this. They use LTV. How many people watch LTV? LTV is the station for Lagos workers and old men. And let's say it the way it is.
But they also have very vibrant social media handles. The governor is very active on social media. His advisors also post.
Yeah, they did it on social handle. Did he?
In all fairness, I think at this point we're going to say that they tried their best to ensure that they put it up. You know what? I think we get your point. Trying their best for the state in terms of communication. Now we've marked that communication was a major problem. Yes, there was a gap in terms of communication, because I'm sure that if a lot of persons knew that bridge would be locked or closed from XYZ time to XYZ time, we wouldn't have suffered.
And also, a lot of people didn't know the bridge, the geographical location, Independence Bridge, Mekwen Bridge, Independence.
Yes, I think it is very clear.
That was an issue.
So maybe a better way next time will be, beyond putting it in the papers, having their representatives from the government go to media houses and have, jingles out there, have a chat with them to understand, to let us know. We're doing this, and this is why we're doing this, and this is how long we're doing this. I'm assuming that should be a better.
Now, talking about solutions, Prof, what are your thoughts on last month's response? Do you think they have the capacity to handle such a huge traffic disruption?
See, if you want to know the truth, we have the human capacity to do anything in this country. The problem is not the capacity. The problem is the willingness to do the right thing. That's always the problem here. It's not the capacity, because we do have it. We do have the human capacity to handle any issue in this country. I can tell you that for free. I can go to the bank with it. But the challenge has been that people are not willing to do the right thing, because they want to see.
But a day after that major disruption, I mean, feelers from even our colleagues here used the roads, and they said, you know, it's fair, and there wasn't traffic as it was terrible on
Which
day
day
one.
was that?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. People got home by 9 p.m., 10 p.m. yesterday. There was a lady yesterday that complained that she left the house in the morning. She was going to pick the daughter. She was going to drop the daughter in school, went to somewhere. By 11, she was going to pick the daughter. She didn't get home until 1 a.m. That was yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So what are we saying? You see, let me tell you. See, you are talking of traffic. I wanted to say something before you cut in. If you travel to, I don't want to go to Europe, just Africa, Ghana, and you enter one way, you know what they will do? The police will just walk to you. Are you a new person here? You say, can I see your passport? You show them your passport. Oh, sorry, this is one way. Please drive back. Where are you going to? They will direct you. But here, well, hey, you don't enter. And before you know it, they begin to quote one ridiculous amount. No, we have to be sane here. We have to be sane here. You can't even talk of Europe and America. Because the things that happen here, I had an issue once. That road, you know, linking to Ikeja from the railway that they are blocked now. One time they made it one way. I passed it on a Saturday. On a Tuesday, I was coming. I saw people moving straight instead of moving direct to Ikeja. I just parked and beckoned on the police lady. I said, excuse me, ma'am, officer, is this place one way now? He said, you don't enter. I was like, what is wrong with everybody?
Almost like a trap.
She now said, open your car. I said, if you enter this car, I'll break your head.
Wow.
Let's go to where you want us to go to. You people can't be mad always. What is wrong with you? I thought that because at times you discover that the senior officers are more responsible.
Yeah.
So I came down, locked my vehicle, I went to him. He said I should go and discuss with her. I said, fine. Whatever you want today, you will get it from me. So she said she wanted to enter the van. I said, madam, don't try it, because if you do, you will see my other side. So I now took my camera and I was snapping the place. And I said, for crying out loud, there's no sign here. He said there was a sign. I said, where? Show me. He said they removed it. I said, show me the spot. Because if there was a sign and they removed it, you will see where the dog to remove the sign. Show me, there was no sign anywhere. You just came up with an issue and you just say the place is one way and you want to trap people. Who does that? Where?
That's very unfair. And the unfortunate thing is we most likely might see more of that because people will be looking for alternatives in this season.
It happened at night, like I said already. On the island, if you were going from VI was permanently was blocked. No, people switched off their cars and were sleeping. Some even went to look for, you know, egg and Then I saw a friend who said he's not going home. They're like three. They joined money. They put money together rather, and they're just going to get a place to stay. You see, this conversation is very important because, like we've highlighted here, we seem not to know what the information really is. Is there a new information? Is there a communique that has been passed by the Lagos State government and the federal government stating clearly and categorically that the bridge will resume construction and will be closed from XYZ time to XYZ time. Therefore, due to this that happened, we have now decided that if you're moving here, but then again, let me ask you quickly. The governor says if you don't have any business on the island, you shouldn't come to the island. He's also advising that people should actually work from home. What's your take on that? Don't you think that would help ease the traffic?
Well, it will help ease the traffic, but it depends on the kind of work you do. Can you ask a banker to work from home?
Or a broadcaster.
Or a broadcaster, right? To work from home.
Or an engineer.
So it depends on the type of work you are doing. If it's a work that you don't have contact with people, you can stay at home and do your work and upload it. In fact, that's what is the in thing now in the world. The world is going
remote work.
Wireless.
Yes.
That's wireless organizations now. You stay at home and do your work, upload, and that's it. But if you have jobs that you need to make contact with people, how do you work from home? These are the issues.
All right.
Now, it's going to put pressure on the employers too to begin to look for hotels for their staff to stay so that they won't be going forth and back. Do you know that some people slept in their offices?
Mm-hmm.
And in the morning, they just went to the bathroom, washed their face, and, the same clothes? Mm-hmm. Because they didn't have prior information. If people had some information earlier, they would have gone with 2 or 3 change clothes. So that whatever happens, you just change your clothes in the morning, maybe use one perfume or the other, and so that you don't start...
that perfume, I hope it's strong enough. Very necessary. I hope that perfume is strong enough.
Before we talk about perfume, I think we should mention deodorant. I think deodorant is actually even more important. But let's talk about this projection for the timelines. We've been given May, that this would be completed in May. Should the government not be able to meet its timeline? What options are there?
You see, the problem I have is that you can't say this is the time that they finish this work. Recall that the first comment the minister made was that this could take 3 days. The minister said so. So if the minister said this could take 3 days, and he's an engineer, and he's a works minister, why are we saying it will take 2 months? These are the issues. I can't reconcile those issues.
So why don't we have a streamlined communication channel? Why is the Lagos State government saying one thing and the federal minister saying another thing? It's almost like they're in competition.
You just said it. And the unfortunate thing is that both of them belong to the same party.
And he said that. The governor acknowledged that. He acknowledged that.
You will not be saying that it's because he's from a different party. Both of them belong to the same party. So I don't understand where the problem is. I don't want to bring politics into it because you know a lot of water has passed under the bridge between the state governor and the federal government. Let me use that word so that I don't go into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. So I think maybe, I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, we've looked at this. Just to mention here that that New Central has also, we've tried to reach out to the Ministry of Works as well to ensure that they can join us, but of course we're not able to reach out to them. In other words, we didn't get the feedback from them, but we'll try again. You did see our reporter who was on ground, Bernard Akede. He was there and he did ask the minister questions. Part of the plan was to also have the minister or his representative to also join us this morning, and then also have someone from Lagos State in whom we're also trying to reach as of the time before this program started. So we want you to know that as well, so that we can balance this conversation. But then again, we do have a public affairs analyst who has also spent years in ensuring that communication is key. Now, in your line of communication, you've also looked at the aspect of one major reason which may have caused this: prior information and also proper information using the right channels. Okay, going forward, and Lagosians still waiting to get a proper communique now that would help us decide what our lives would look like in the next few months. What do you advise? Let's get an advice from you using your experience. What do you advise the Lagos State governor to do? And also, what do you advise the Federal Ministry of Works to equally do in this scenario?
Okay. Let me start with the Federal Ministry of Works. Every project has a timeline. There's a start date and an end date. And if you look at projects, you see their signposts. You will see the person that's doing the project, the time the project is starting, and the time the project is ending. Naturally, that's the way it works in project management. So what I expect is that they will do their meetings, shield their swords, and come together to tell us this project will be delivered on such a date. And that these alternative routes now, maybe create more alternative routes. Now, be definite about it. People coming from Surulere, people coming from Aja, people come from this end. These are the routes we are going to take to avoid this. And then, try as much as possible. When there is a problem like this, you work day and night. Do much of the work in the night so that by the daytime, you will not cause a lot of problems.
Kind of what happened with the Third Mainland Bridge situation.
That is it.
But then again, I mean, I just want you to speak to some of the actions of the government and how they've been touted to be a government that in some measure carries out projects without conducting risk assessment to see what the potential damage this might cause. First of all, when we look at the coastal highway, many people had, I don't know if you saw the clip then when they had asked if there had been an environmental impact assessment has been done, and he said yes,
and it was not done.
Eventually
it was not done.
No report.
They went to destroy people's property, only to now discover that if they go on with that road, they are going to destroy the pipes and the cables.
So now bring that back.
And now the money they have spent there, that wasted them. That guy that owns that resort is still crying that he has not been compensated.
Yes, he hasn't, according to the latest report. Then you bring that back to Lagos, and you've seen how this whole bridge, it does seem like, again, this was done without an environmental impact assessment, social impact assessment as to how it will impact the lives of Nigerian citizens. How do we go forward to ensure that we don't constantly have a repeat of situations like this where they make a decision? In fact, even him ordering that the bridge be reopened, was he aware that bridge was completely broken?
I don't know. That's what I was saying. There's a lot of confusion. All of them are confused. See, I have always said this. We have had this problem time and time again, and people are not trying to do due diligence. Let me digress a little bit. Now, when Lagos State government wanted to do the BRT, the red buses, they just drew lines on Lagos roads. There was no communication, and people were running in and out of those lines. So they discovered there were a lot of infractions. Now, it was after they had discovered that, they started building blocks on Ikorodu Road. Now, when they now build those blocks, they now discover that the accident rate has been increased by those blocks. Because people don't see them at night, they ram into them. So they now started painting the blocks. After painting it, it reduced the accident rate a little bit, but didn't reduce it automatically. They now started putting reflectors on those blocks. Now look at the rigor they went through. But they would have solved that problem by sensitizing the people. We have this red line, yellow lines, you don't enter into it. They said they did, and somebody asked, which media did you use? They said LTV. How many people watch LTV? So these are my issues. We have this problem. Now it has come to this again. Now it's the same thing that we are facing. Why don't you sensitize people in other classes? See, the Republic of Benin here, if they want to take light, they will inform you that within this period and this period, there will be light disruption. And they will tell you reasons why they are doing that. And immediately after that, your light comes back. But here, somebody will just be passing and will put the thing off. The next minute you'll come back.
So how are you sure that it's somebody that put it off?
No, it's animal that put it off. You say, that put it off. You say, that put it off.
I like one fact that we're making light of this issue because whether we like it or not, we've all been beaten and pained, especially for those of us who are in traffic. And I'm sure that those who are watching us from home who were in that traffic would possibly also, benefit from this. But I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts, especially looking at it from the communication aspect, because that's why we're having this conversation.
And another thing, just to add, before we wrap up the conversation, another concern I have is, if this is going to continue, how are we going to be able to manage emergencies? If there's a fire outbreak, if there is someone needs to access the ambulance, how are we going to be able to manage emergencies? Has that been taken into consideration? And, will there be a memo put out to that effect to say where there are emergencies, this should happen?
Can I say one last thing?
Please
go ahead.
So that it will not be like as if I'm just giving knocks to the state government. Now, the problem they have with the red buses, when they came with the blue buses, they now did a test run for almost 1 week. And that is what it has to be in project management. You have to do a test run to see the things you didn't envisage when you were planning. So by the time you do the test run, those things will now show themselves. I didn't take note of this. Now you correct it before you now roll out. That's the way it's supposed to be. And they did that with the blue buses. And you see how effective those blue buses are compared to the red buses. So we should learn, and when we do some of these things, we should equally maintain it. I'm surprised that Lagos, the center of excellence, can have this charade. It's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thanks for joining us. And we did enjoy this conversation, no doubt. Anyway, let's move on now and tell you that the Defense Headquarters says it has rescued 16 kidnapped victims in the northwest zone of the country, following intense military operations against terrorists. Director of the Defense Media Operations, Major General Marcus Kanji, while giving an operational update to newsmen in Abuja, says that the troops, while conducting fighting patrols, also neutralized terrorists, dismantling their operations and recovering a large cache of arms and ammunition. He says that similar successes was also recorded in the northeast, where troops repelled an ambush by terrorists, neutralizing several of their combatants. Take a look.
Troops of Operation Fansanyama recorded the following during the week. Between 27 March and 1st April, they conducted 40 patrols and made contact with terrorists in Isa and Sabonbrini local government areas of Sokoto State, as well as Kankara local government area of Katsina State. During the encounters, some terrorists were neutralized while 16 kidnapped victims were rescued. Some automatic and locally fabricated weapons, as well as assorted quantities of 7.62mm ammunition, motorcycles were also recovered. Similarly, on 27th March, troops while on fighting patrol came under terrorist attack in Maiduguri Metropolitan Municipal Council. The troops successfully repelled the attack and neutralized several of them. They also recovered some weapons.
Okay, well done and kudos. When we see success and we see positive stories, we will indeed celebrate with them. And we're saying well done to the Nigerian military for pulling their own weight, and we look forward to a time when insurgency would actually become something of the past. But that's it. Let's quickly bring you a recap of some of the top stories we've had here on Breakfast Central for this hour, for the first hour. Recap, we would bring to you more stories, but first let's remind you that we brought to you this story. David Umahi counters Governor Sanwo-Olu concerning the traffic. Nigerian police pledges 50% in crime rate as well, and not forgetting too, Nigerian troops rescue 16 kidnapped victims in the northeast.
Coming up on Breakfast Central, still to come on the program today, INEC declares recall petition against Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan inadequate. We would also be addressing the National Assembly image crisis with former Minister Solomon Dalong. Schools reopen in Katsina after Ramadan. Do stay with us. Breakfast Central continues shortly. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Suspended Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan on Thursday applauded the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for what she described as a just verdict. This follows the Commission's invalidation of the petition seeking to recall her, saying the petition failed to reach the constitutional requirement as only 43.86% of registered voters in the 5 local government areas signed the recall notice.
Only 208,132 voters out of the 474,554 voters registered in the constituency, representing 43.86%, signed the recall notice as against the required 237,278, thereby putting an end to the process. We're now joined by the Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Victoria Etamesi. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, the reports we're having, of course, is that they failed to meet the required numbers for the recall process to be initiated. But beyond that, I'd like you to elaborate on that, but also speak to some of the conversations about the potential of forged signatures and the image that it may have cast, or the aspersions may have casted on the integrity of those who were moving for the recall. Did INEC in any way confirm that these signatures were in any way valid, or is it strictly because of the numbers, the 43.8% that we're looking at here?
Okay, thank you once more for having me. So for a recall process to be adjudged successful, there are several steps that need to be taken. So if you go by the provisions of the Constitution, the Electoral Act 2022, and the guidelines and regulations of the Commission for a recall, it's clearly, the regulations in particular clearly spells out the steps that need to be taken. And so a petition is submitted. And this petition that is submitted would be supported by signatures of petitioners that want their member to be recalled. And like you rightly mentioned in the intro, they need 50% plus 1 signatures for that petition to be valid. And 50% plus 1 signatures for the Kogi Central recall to have been adjudged valid would have been 237,278 votes, signatures. And so a petition was submitted on the 24th. And this petition was supported with a covering letter. And that covering letter is signed by representatives of the petitioners. And so if you recall what happened last week, the commission, having received the petition, noted that the covering letter did not have the contact details of the representatives. We needed to know who these representatives were. And if we needed, for ease of communication, it was important that we have their addresses and their contact details. And that was missing. And that was why in that first instance, the commission again flagged it and said there was a problem with this petition. But within 24 hours, they were able to address that issue. They presented another covering letter that had their contact details. And then the commission put out a notice notifying the member whose recall is being sought. Again, a notice was also sent to the presiding officer, that is the Senate President, notifying him of what was on the table with regard to the senator whose recall was being sought by her constituents, and the public was also notified. And after that, in that notification, it was stated that the signatures were going to be ascertained. That means that the commission would take a look at all those signatures to even be sure that we had the number first. At this point, we're not looking at whether they are forged or whatever. Do we even have the numbers? And that was what the commission did, and arrived at the press release that was brought out yesterday, that the petition did not meet the acceptable threshold. Because like we said, we needed 237,278 signatures. But the signatures that were submitted after the physical count amounted to 208,132. And that was 43.8% instead of 50% plus 1. So at that point, the commission needed to bring out another notification, another press release stating that we could not go further. Because the Constitution clearly states that for us to conduct a recall, there must be 50% plus 1 signatures of constituents of the member whose recall is being sought. And so that was where we were as at yesterday.
All right.
After the physical verification, so to speak, of the signatures that were submitted.
All right, thank you very much for bringing, setting a background to the conversation. So I'm just going to reiterate another angle of my question, and why I brought the issue of forgery is because Nigerians were saying that it was logistically impossible for us to get that number of email addresses and phone numbers or signatures in 24 hours. And in your explanation, you did mention that in 24 hours they were able to rectify it. So from the perspective and the standpoint of INEC, knowing how, the challenges we experience in terms of conducting elections, being able to work with crowds and the like, is it logistically possible to be able to get over 200,000 votes, 200,000 details in 24 hours?
The contacts that were represented were not contacts of the petitioners, the 208,000 that they had. It was the contact of the representatives. So, for instance, you have 5 local governments that make up that senatorial district. So it is given or expected that each local government would have like a leader. So those were the representatives that signed the covering letter. So it was a covering letter that the commission initially flagged. Okay. And that was what corrected within 24 hours. The contact details of the representatives, their leaders, not these other petitioners, the main petitioners that appended their signatures to the petition.
All right. Thank you very much for clarifying that with us.
And again, going back to your other question about the possibility of being able to come up with all those signatures, that is the essence of the next step that we would have taken. The next step would have proven if actually there are human beings that own these signatures that were submitted, because the verification gives us the opportunity to go back to the constituency and to invite all those who signed the petition to turn up to be verified.
Very interesting. I mean, I think with these points that you've made, it sure has instilled a lot of confidence in many who are watching now, because that, out of the list, is the topmost question that has come from Nigerians looking at the current situation in Kogi State. But we'd like you to please stay with us. We'll go for a quick break. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some other aspects of this recall process and also look at one of the major indicators that has indeed sparked a lot of controversy concerning that story and, of course, INEC in itself. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central, and we're having a conversation on the recall process that INEC just said that the petitioners didn't meet the threshold, so it's been thrown out. We're joined by a representative of INEC, and before we went to that commercial break, we're talking on a number of issues. But my question to you now, madam, is INEC spent quite a significant amount of resources on this recall process, sorting the documents and manpower and all of that. Do these petitioners have an opportunity to represent their petition, or once a petition is thrown out, that's it, or is there a period they have to wait for? Now that they know that they didn't meet the threshold, maybe they will try to get more signatures. What's INEC's position on this?
The law is actually silent on that. The law does not explain. So for now, we really do not know how that would pan out. But there's no provision for that in the law for them to go back and resubmit in the nearest future. But not that the other situation was that we needed the contact of 5 representatives. 5 people came and said, we are the leaders of the petitioner. So it was easy for us to say, oh, the letter that you submitted did not carry your contact addresses. And so that was easy to do. And they did that within 24 hours. But now you have submitted a petition signed by 208,000 petitioners who are constituents within the constituency of the member whose recall is being sought. And so what excuse would they give now? And where will they say they got the additional signatures from? So that's where it may be, that action may be questionable. But again, like I said, the law does not specifically explain or give room. There's no window for that they can go and come back within the shortest possible time to say, oh, we have made up the shortfall of the signatures that are being requested.
Thank you for clarifying that. But practically speaking, we know the law is silent on it. Administratively and practically speaking, what does this do to INEC, and what position would you, if you could advise on this process, if it should be repeated or not? What would be the ideal situation for everyone?
I don't think it is the place of INEC to ask them to represent. They know why they wanted, or why they are requesting that their member, their representative should be recalled. But then it was also their responsibility to ensure that due diligence was applied when they were submitting or putting together their petition. Because the guidelines and regulations for the recall of a member of the House of a legislative house clearly states the steps that need to be taken. The Constitution insists that there must be 50% plus 1. The Electoral Act also insists that we must have 50% plus 1 in the case of area council members in the FCT. And so if they did not factor that while they were putting together the signatures, I think they can only hold themselves to blame for that. So the commission cannot ask them to go back and look for additional signatures. So who are the people that they are going to meet now? Are they going to start afresh? Those are the issues. because they cannot now bring another. The commission has put paid to this particular petition. It says it's not going to take any further action. So for them to act again, it means they need to go back to the field or to their constituency and get the signatures afresh. And like I said, the commission is silent, the law is silent on that. So I don't know how soon that can be achieved.
Okay. All right. I'd like us to look at one major issue that also came up during this entire, situation. There was a case of the Kogi Central Political Frontier, which happened to be the name that was pushing for this entire recall process. The CAC, as we heard, definitely came out and said that that particular company was not registered under the CAC. Let's see how this is linked to INEC. Does INEC also take cognizance into names in terms of company names or, a conglomerate that comes to, push for a recall process? And did INEC, was this entire process being pushed? Can you confirm to us it was being pushed by this same name, Kogi Central Political Frontier?
I don't think the name, whatever name that was used, would be an issue because the law did not specify that it has to be a registered company. They just need to have a leader because all of them cannot turn up at the INEC office. And so they would have representatives. So for the 5 local governments, they would have, most likely have one representative or one leader per local government. And I think that suffices. They just chose to give themselves a name. I don't think that was really necessary because the law did not stipulate or specify that it has to be a registered company or a registered entity with the Corporate Affairs Commission that would represent them.
All right. There have been speculations about the fact that this recall was politically motivated. Is INEC concerned about the reason for a recall, and are there guardrails to ensure that the recall is not manipulated by opponents to destabilize elected officials?
Well, INEC cannot stop politicians from doing whatever they want to do, but all INEC has to do is to strictly follow the guidelines and the stipulations of the law. And mind you, a recall is not an easy process to achieve. Already we have there has been a lot of talk about the voter strength, the usual or regular voter strength in the recent past. And so for you to now arrive at the threshold that is expected of you in a recall is already a tall order. So that alone is I would say, sufficient check. So if you are able to achieve that threshold, then it means truly that the people want their representative to be called back.
Now, just to follow up on my colleague's initial question, could you clarify whether INEC was under any external pressure, either from political figures or government institutions, while handling this recall petitions? Because there's been accusations by a camp that INEC was biased and was teleguiding this group on how to go about the recall process.
INEC was not teleguiding the group, and INEC was not under the influence or guidance or control of anybody. INEC merely stuck to the rules. And the first time they submitted the petition, INEC just laid out what the issue was. There has to be a covering letter supporting the petition. And this covering letter that was sent, that was submitted to the commission, did not have the contact details of the representatives. And so if we needed to reach out to them or get back to them or share information with them, we had no way of getting through to them. And that was why INEC flagged that issue and said, we do not have the contact, and so we cannot progress with this. And in their wisdom, within 24 hours, they made their contact details available to the commission. And the law did not say that because they did not submit their contact in the first instance, that we should permanently stop the process. And so once they had submitted that, INEC had no choice but to continue with the process. And mind you, in all the steps that INEC had taken in this, it kept notifying the public. Every step that was taken, the outcome was put on its website. The member whose recall was being sought was also notified. that a petition had been submitted by members of our constituents, and these were the actions that the commission was bound to take in line with the rules and regulations and the Constitution as well as the Electoral Act. So INEC was not being teleguided by anybody. It was merely following the dictates of the law.
Can you speak to the report about INEC receiving an interim injunction refraining INEC from proceeding with the recall process? We have a report here that the Federal High Court sitting at Koja granted an interim injunction restraining INEC from receiving or acting on any petition seeking to recall her pending the determination of the motion. So can you please speak to that?
I'm not aware of that ruling. I'm not aware of that ruling, but even if there was such a ruling, already INEC has said that it would not take any further action because the petition itself is flawed. Because it did not meet the acceptable threshold as specified by the Constitution.
All right.
So if they had actually met the acceptable threshold, I think I do not know the basis and the merit of that judgment. I am just hearing that for the first time. But the summary is that the petition did not meet the acceptable threshold. And so INEC has brought the process to its conclusive end.
Now, for voter education purposes, this is a hypothetical situation now. Let's assume it met the threshold. What's the verification process for those signatures, and what would be the next steps to having a successful recall?
Yeah, so if they had met the threshold, if the petition was supported by 237,278 signatures, INEC would have notified the member whose recall is being sought that we have, after physical confirmation of the signatures supporting this petition, they have met the 50% plus 1. And so we are going to go ahead with the next step of the recall process. The presiding officer would also have been notified, the public would have been notified, and then INEC would now bring out a timetable for the verification exercise. And once a date is fixed for the verification exercise, the member whose recall is being sought has the opportunity to appoint her verification agents, because this verification is going to take place or would have taken place at all the polling units, that is 902 polling units in the constituency of Kogi Central.
All right.
And so once that would have been done, so the notice is put out, INEC on its own would have to engage the officials that would be used, that would serve in these polling units. So there would be verification officers that would be engaged and trained for the responsibility that awaits them at the polling unit. And again, the member whose recall is being sought would also have the opportunity to appoint her agents to represent or protect his or her interest in all the polling units. That's again for transparency.
All right.
And so on the date of the verification, all those who appended their signature to the petition must turn up to be verified.
All right.
So they'll be verified both manually and electronically using the register of petitioners as well as the beavers to confirm that these people that signed are actually human beings. So that is sufficient check for the fraud that you suspected or you were talking about.
Now we see why we've not been able to conduct.
You have had to come up to turn out for verification.
Right. I said now we see why we've not been able to conduct a successful recall here in Nigeria.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Victoria Etamesi, Director, Voter Education and Publicity at INEC, for your time with us and for this very expository conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Very
3
interesting
cows and 2
conversation.
camels to pass through the eye of a needle before you can successfully recall a senator in Nigeria.
It kind of like reminds you of what the Siminalayi case, although, I mean, going back and forth, and while Nigerians would always ask, how hard is it for you to get someone representing.
No, I understand how hard it is.
Yes, it's
and it's also transparent too, because you have a verification officer.
Right.
You also have the recalled person appoint agents to verify.
And talking about recalling people, especially from the National Assembly, our next conversation should actually look at that right away.
Of course, talking about the integrity of the National Assembly and to see exactly how, what the next steps will be. The Nigerian Senate is facing a deepening image crisis following recent events that have fueled public distrust in the people's representatives. First, the Senate President, regarded as a third citizen of the nation, has been accused of sexual harassment by Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan, who alleged that the Senate President Godswill Akpabio made persistent sexual advances toward her. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan also filed a petition seeking the disbarment of Senator Nedanwe Imaswen, who over the past misconduct in the U.S., further damaging the Senate's public image.
Meanwhile, reports have emerged alleging that lawmakers were bribed to support the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State and unconstitutional suspension of Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara. This series of events has become an international indictment of the Nigerian Senate. Many Nigerians have raised concerns about the urgent need to redeem the image of the National Assembly it's meant to uphold. Prominent figures such as former Senate President Bukola Saraki, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, and former President Goodluck Jonathan have expressed alarm over the legislature's declining credibility and global reputation. Now, join us this morning on Breakfast Central to discuss this is a former Minister of Youth and Sports and a legal practitioner, Mr. Solomon Dalong. Warm welcome to you, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your time. Now, I'll start with the obvious general question. What's your assessment of the 10th Assembly under the leadership of Godswill Akpabio? So many Nigerians have termed the 10th Assembly a rubber stamp assembly. They say the executive asks and the legislature delivers all the time. What do you make of the 10th National Assembly?
Well, that is what is referred to in leadership as integrity. Now, integrity means the moral disposition of a leader and his character. The National Assembly, before we even proceed, we have to take a close review of who are the principal actors holding leadership position and what is their reputation. Of course, the Senate President, you will have to interrogate the process with which he even became a senator. The process that produced him was challenged at the level of the Supreme Court, and it raised a very serious integrity issue. Even at the valedictory session of the 9th Senate, Senator Rochas Okocha, jokingly in the National Assembly, said the Senate President and the former Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, should tell them how, after contesting the presidential election, they found their way back into the Senate. That is a very serious credibility issue about the electoral process and how the Senate President ultimately emerged. So having put this into proper perspective, can you expect anything short of the process that produced this type of leadership? So the fundamental challenge is that the Senate President has excess baggages of reputation and credibility question hanging on his neck like the sword of a Democrat. Can Nigerians expect somebody with such reputational question to provide leadership? The question is no. I remember when I was a minister between 2015 to 2019, when the former EFCC boss, Magu, it was on the national television where he was addressing Nigerians and saying boxes of dollars were recovered in Uyo presidential lodge, traceable to the former governor. He was invited by EFCC. At a point in time, he said he was not well, and since he became Senate President, he has not gone there again. So I think Nigerians are expecting miracle to happen in the camp of the devil. And the miracles that will only come out from that place will be the miracle of disgrace, controversies, and challenges as we are facing. So I think we should not expect much from the Senate because the fish will have been rotten at the head before the body. So if the leadership has credibility and reputational question, of course, the National Assembly will have to graduate from a mayor of a stamp to choristers of the executive. So once the executives initiate a song, they all synchronize and sing louder. That is the jeopardy of the current 10th Assembly. It's very intolerant. So all those that seek within the system to try to guide it, they descended heavily on them. They are either suspended, they are clamped down on. So all forms of abnormalities that is unknown to legislative tradition historically is what we are dealing with, but it has to do with the quality of leadership in place.
All right. Mr. DeLong, but in defense of the Senate President, strong supporters of his have come out to say that it is because he is a Senate President from the South, and that's the more reason why he is being pushed to leave that seat as a Senate President. I mean, they're all equal, but it's the first amongst equal. What do you make of this tribal narrative? Do you think it holds water?
You know, it is just a deliberate attempt to try to drag the integrity of that song to the floor. The Senate President of the Second Republic, Senator Wayas, was from the South, and he has been rated as one of the best Senate Presidents that Nigeria ever produced. Is the South of Senator Wayas different from the South of Akpabio? I think these are just apologies and beneficiaries of a very bad and terrible situation that they are trying to recruit and engage a larger spectrum of the political space so that they will reduce the issues from the character of the individual involved to a community question. And this is how Nigerians deal with situations like this. I remember a governor was arrested, a former governor was arrested, and the people demonstrated and said, yes, he is a thief, but he's our own thief. So this is what they are trying to play out. But I think the people of the South, historically, go back to look at people like Akpoti-Uduaghan, look at great leaders like Kilo, look at the executive governor from 1999 to 2007, Obong Victor. These are credible leaders. I don't know, from the South. Why are they not behaving? Why did they not behave like Akpabio? So this is just an unacceptable attempt to try to disseminate the gravity of what is being discussed at the national conversation.
All right. There have been a number of suspensions that have occurred or happened at the Senate. We've had Senator Abdul Ningi, but let's focus on the most recent suspension, the suspension of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. The Senate says it's because of, unruly behavior that, came up as a result of the sitting arrangement disagreement. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, on the other hand, disagrees and thinks that it's directly linked to the sexual harassment allegations. First of all, how does this reflect? We've seen she's granted several interviews. The matter has become not just a conversation here in Nigeria, but outside the country. How does this reflect on the Senate? And how should the Senate have handled this better to ensure transparency and accountability?
If we are familiar with legislative tradition, we will agree that this 10th National Assembly has derailed into the abyss. Fighting, shouting, throwing of chairs at each other is a legislative tradition globally. It's not even limited to Nigeria. So, the offense of an unruly behavior is very, very strange to legislative culture. The legislature is a miniature of the larger political community reduced to representation. Therefore, the behavior as it is expected of the people when you gather them, the competitive nature of trying to make sure that my interest gains acceptance will always play out. I have watched the British Parliament in action where they were on each other's neck, pushing, fighting. I have watched so many of such legislative acts in Asia, in Europe, and even in Africa. So it is to me, it's very strange that the 10th Assembly, because of its very desperate attempt to impose tyranny in place of democracy, is redefining every act into a crime. The question now is, why was Natasha suspended? To me, I followed it carefully, and my opinion on this issue is that the 10th Assembly, the Senate mismanaged the issue of Natasha. In the National Assembly, it is known that communications are always in writing. Even when I was a minister, every invitation is communicated to me in writing. Nobody called me. They write. And that is in accordance with the rules of the Senate. Now, the missing gap in this issue of relocation of Natasha's seat is that the Senate President did not establish whether Natasha was communicated in writing that her seat was changed before the following day she refused to relocate. In absence of formal communication, Akpabio cannot be a village headmaster armed with a horse whip, sitting with a Miloko cap, and then looking at the senators, whom he is one among equal, and will be telling, my friend, go away from here, go and sit here. It is not done that way. He became a Senate President by law, and he must govern by law. So that is the beginning of the problem of this Natasha issue. She wasn't communicated previously as required by the rules. So the first victim of disobedience of law is the Senate President and not Natasha. Now, when Natasha refused to comply, Natasha was defending the rules of the National Assembly and defending the rule of law. Then comes the issue of her petition, because thereafter she submitted a petition. And she said, I have been bottling so many things over the months, over 11 months. But I think from what I am seeing playing out is I am being victimized because I refuse to surrender my body in bargain of favor from the Senate President. The allegation is very weighty. Would the making of that allegation, the Senate President would have stepped down, allowed the Deputy Senate President to preside for transparency and accountability of the process. But because the Senate President had something to hide and a cover-up, he ignored this fundamental aspect of law. Sadly, he belonged to this, our community of lawyers. He sat in judgment and he dramatized the issue, ignoring the allegation or trying to distract Nigerians. He went ahead to use his hatchet man, the chairman of the Ethics Committee, to now preside over what many senators have come out now to say, no, the signatures used in that committee to arrive at the recommendation of suspending the Natasha was extracted from attendance. We never physically participated. So, at the end of it all, you will discover that in trying to cover up this weighty allegation and shut her up from speaking out,
all right, seem to have a little connectivity glitch there, but I'm sure we're getting the point made by former minister there, talking about the incident and the situation that took place, which has indeed made the headlines in the past few weeks and possibly a month and counting, concerning the Senate President and, of course, the sitting senator who has now been suspended, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. But then again, you know, but, okay, we have him back. We're told we have him back. Binga.
Now,
yes. So the Senate President now orchestrated the suspension, and even you could see how he did not even pretend in handling it. She's suspended for 6 months. She is also to lose her security. She should not be seen between the vicinity of the National Assembly. All these rights are rights of a senator. Suspension cannot take it away. And the question now legally is whether does the Senate has power to suspend the representation of the people for 6 months. The answer is no. There are judicial decisions to this. There are rules provide that they can only suspend for a maximum of 14 days. In the case of Omogege and Ndume, the courts had clearly laid down the laws governing the suspension. So the Senate, again, in violation of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, principles of democracy and the rule of law, long-term tradition of legislature, embarked now on a voyage of vendetta, suspended her for 6 months. So this illegality and affront on the Constitution is very, very unhealthy to democracy. We are practicing constitutional democracy, where Section 1 of the Constitution is very clear. The Constitution is supreme. Section 1, Section 2 says nobody will exercise any authority in Nigeria except as provided for by this Constitution. The authority being exercised by Akpabio is a stranger to the Constitution, is an enemy to the Constitution, is a threat to the Constitution, and indeed is an affront to democratic tenets.
Now, Mr. DeLong, you were a member of the executive in the last administration under the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. In your opinion, do you think the current National Assembly is effectively fulfilling its role in providing checks and balances to the executive branch? If you do recall, during the presentation of the 2025 budget at the National Assembly, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio led members of the National Assembly in chorus and singing Mr. President's campaign song, "On Your Mandate, We Shall Stand." What do you make of that? And especially, also, how do you assess the National Assembly's checks and balances in light of recent approval, such as the state of emergency in Rivers State, and also allegations of financial inducement to influence legislative decisions?
I was actually embarrassed when the 2025 budget was presented. And I think that song that was sung, if I hear them well, maybe Nigerians would hear it the way I had it. But the way I heard the song and I understood it, it was like, on your dollar we shall stand, on your dollar we shall stand, on your dollar, Tinubu, on your dollar we shall stand. That wasn't the song. But of course, we are dealing with a state of abnormality. Everything goes. If the National Assembly were to sing, the best song could have been the national anthem, which would have been in the honor of the country and in mobilizing Nigerians to appreciate their democracy. Let us not now look at, okay, when I was in a federal executive, we had one of the best Senate under Bukola Saraki, because that Senate gave us a very serious check and balance. And of course, we sat up as members of the federal executive, even though many people who are anti-democratic elements considered the attitude of the Senate as hostile. But those of us who are Democrats, I mean, we appreciated them as investing their interest in trying to make sure that our democracy is guided by the rule of law. So that, to me, in my opinion, was one of the best Senate, even though we had it very rough. Many a times we have to sit up to try to defend our actions before the Senate, but it was quite healthy for democracy. Now, the approval of the declaration of state of emergency and the approval of the state of emergency is one of the worst things that ever happened to any country, a democratic country in the world. Section 305 is very categorical as to the processes which a state of emergency can be declared. The factors that can initiate the exercise of that power is also provided for under Section 305. Now, it is either there is a territorial threat, there is national health challenge, then there is also an internal security challenge. Upon the maturity of any of these situations, the president can declare a state of emergency. The governor, even on his own, if these factors exist, can declare state of emergency and invite the president to exercise his power of dealing with situation and mobilizing requisite forces of the different Republic of Nigeria to deal with the situation. So these provisions are very, very clear. But what we saw playing out in Rivers is that we woke up with a president who declared a state of emergency, published it in a federal gazette, and sent it to the National Assembly. The Constitution required the National Assembly to rectify it within 48 hours. The intendment of the constitutional drafters is that within 24 hours, every member of the National Assembly to take, which is the requirement, that is present, should have been able to speak for or against. Then, from there, they will proceed into voting. And the requirement of the National Assembly is that two-thirds majority of the members of the National Assembly, which is distinguishable from two-thirds of the National Assembly members present. Now, The president deposited the declaration. It has not been verified. He proceeded in one of the cubicles in his office, himself and the chief of staff, so in an administrator, even when the state of emergency had not been rectified by the National Assembly, which sends the message that my boys in the Senate will definitely do my bidding, so I don't have to waste time. So the administrator was sworn in and was on his way to Port Harcourt even before the National Assembly, in a dramatic twist, adopted another procedure unknown to law. Those that gather till today, we do not have record of how many of them, which is an important requirement of Section 205. And then the strange procedure introduced there is now the using of a voice vote. And the voice vote is what the 10th Assembly is generally using. Anything they want to do against the Nigerian people, 2 or 3 members will gather in either the House of Reps or Senate with the Senate or House of Reps leadership in place, and they will say, oh, well, Nigerians today, we are going, there's a motion for Nigerians, 500 Nigerians to be sold to a foreign country. Who are against it? Who are for it? But the eyes have it, and they will start rolling Nigerians. So they adopted the same method. And in a kangaroo manner of a very jungle legislative procedure, they now rectified it. And subsequently now emerged the allegations of inducement, which they have been admitting in denial. Because the spokesperson of the House of Representatives who said, we were given money, but it was for Salah celebration. Now, his response, the gift, came when the issue of state of emergency was being deliberated in the National Assembly. And Salah was a week or a week plus 5. Why was the gift of Salah appropriate during the deliberation and ratification of the state of emergency? They are just taking Nigerians for right, and they assume that all of us are just morons whose experiences in education was just a wild goose chase experience. Otherwise, those stories, even you cannot tell them to the Marine. But that is what we're dealing with.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. I think we've gotten your feedback, especially looking at these issues, state of the nation, and most importantly, our focus has been on the National Assembly. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Solomon DeLong. We've had a very, very interesting conversation with you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that has been the bulk of our conversation for the past 2 hours. We've had a number of insightful conversations, but let's share with you what is still to come on Breakfast Central. Still to come on Breakfast Central, we'll be looking at the drawing board. We're taking you back there as Joe Hansen will be analyzing an interesting aspect of society. We'll be reviewing the newspaper front pages immediately, opening the phone lines for you as well. Women seek reinstatement of suspended Governor Fubara. They are breaking the almighty. We'll be talking about that as well.
Thanks for staying with us here on News Central's Breakfast Central. Let's take a look at the headlines very quickly, just in case you've missed some of the biggest stories. Let's begin in River State, where the sole administrator, retired Vice Ibas, says a new 2025 budget is in the final stages of preparation. He adds that areas of focus will include healthcare, education, agriculture, infrastructure, and job creation. Ibas disclosed this on Thursday while hosting a delegation of the River State National Assembly caucus led by Senator Barinada Mpigi at the Government House in Port Harcourt.
We have worked diligently to ensure that the process is transparent, inclusive, and most importantly, expedited. Our goal is to ensure that we do not lose any more time in making the necessary investments that will improve the lives of our citizens. The budget, which is being finalized, focuses on creating job opportunities and investing in key sectors such as agriculture, infrastructure, and technology. We understand the urgency of these initiatives, and we are committed to ensuring that they're implemented without delay. But we cannot do this alone, as I had earlier stated. We need your support as the key representatives of Rivers State in the National Assembly to help us secure the necessary resources and legislative backing to bring these initiatives to fruition. Your partnership is critical to our success in ensuring that Rivers State remains on part of.
Well, in the meantime, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has described viral reports claiming he collapsed in the course of his duties and was flown to France for emergency treatment as false, malicious, and mischievous. The minister, during an inspection of projects and bridges under construction in Abuja, says that those responsible tried to distract Nigerians from the true events ongoing in Rivers State, following revelations by the former head of service of state over plans by the former Governor Siminalayi Fubara to unleash mayhem, especially on the critical assets of the federal government. He says that he is in good health and has never felt better since his appointment as minister.
I don't want to give credence to people who are only interested in carrying over. First of all, the human being, it is not a ghost that will collapse. It's human beings that will collapse if there's any problem in their health. Unfortunately, I did not collapse. I didn't share this side that I had any health problems. Let me tell you what happened. What happened was that you see that the former head of service of Rivers State government came out to let the public know what was going on. We had a plan to bomb the House Assembly complex. I had a plan to attack national assets. In order to divert attention for people not focusing on that, they have to bring one rumor that they have been flown overseas. There was not a time I collapsed, there was not a time anybody took me to. I thank Nigerians for being, for really worried that this should be, but people should not wish their fellow human beings such a thing to happen. We know that we will die one day, nobody will remain in this world forever.
Well, let's come back to Lagos now, where the Minister of Works, David Umahi, has ordered the reopening of the Independence Bridge on Victoria Island, Lagos, stating that its rehabilitation should not take longer than 3 working days or 3 days in the first instance. His statement stood at variance with earlier remarks by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who had said the bridge would remain closed for weeks pending the completion of repairs.
To do this properly, there would be a different kind of method statement would have deployed and wouldn't have necessitated to total closure. And even if we're going to close, we would have done it in such a way that we take 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we would have put in place the remedial work that would be necessary. So what we are doing now is to restore the bridge temporarily within the next 3 days. By Sunday, this place will be totally open. And then after 2 weeks, we will look at the settlements. And then we will take out 3 days to put the permanent structure. That is what we're going to do.
Well, let's tell you that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says the petition seeking to recall Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, senator representing Kogi Central, failed to meet the constitutional threshold. INEC made this announcement on Thursday via its official X handle. The Commission cited Section 69A of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which outlines the conditions for recalling a lawmaker, noting that the petition failed to fulfill these requirements. Speaking at a homecoming rally on Tuesday, Akpoti-Uduaghan accused the electoral body of bias in a recall. On March 24, some members of Kogi Central constituency submitted a petition to INEC requesting the recall of Akpoti-Uduaghan. INEC, however, said the petitioners did not provide their contact details. Well, that's all we have for you here on Breakfast Headlines. We do have the front pages of the newspapers coming up next, and we have breaking story for you, especially if you were wondering what would happen to Lagosians concerning the Independence Bridge. Well, we have very interesting story. Why don't you stay with us? We'll tell you about it in a moment.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We, of course, will be reviewing the newspapers shortly, but before then, we're going to be doing a live report with one of our correspondents.
Most definitely. And we're looking at our correspondent who is live now. Israel Eferobo joins us from the center, we could say, of attraction, because it's garnered a lot of conversations and so on. Israel, can you tell us where you are and what is going on? We really need to know.
All right, good morning, GOJ. That's for the three of you here in the studios. We're live at the Independence Bridge here in Lagos, and this is exactly what has been got everyone in Lagos talking for a bit. But today, this morning, we can report that work isn't going, and so much has been done over the night, as we have been told and we have seen. Some of the engineers here working tirelessly all through the night to go through the process to ensure that this bridge is open sooner rather than later. Yesterday, the minister was here, and something that he did say was that he will go ahead to order a temporary fix on this Independence Bridge. But from what we are seeing here now, it is way more than just 3 days situation, because it seems like this bridge just might be open today, according to the feelers that we are getting. You see the visuals that are on your screen right now, and when we were here 2 days ago, it was a gorge. They dug this place for the repair work, and from what you can see right now, it has been filled up over the night. Wow. We were told that they had to go through lots of processes, getting the sharp sand in, getting the stone base as well. Those are two processes that the engineers say was very, very important for the sharp sand and the stone base to work properly. And then afterwards, they had to go ahead to do something in engineering that they call compacting. So they had to compact all of this together before going on to another stage called the sand cement stabilization. So all of these things they've been able to put together over the night. This time it's just past 9 in the morning, and feelers reaching me here say that the minister will be here later today, give or take maybe about noon, at about 12 p.m. today, to see the progress of the work being done here at the Independence Bridge. And unconfirmed reports also do say that this bridge just might be open to traffic much later today.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's some surprising news.
Very
yes.
surprising.
Yes,
Just
indeed.
to double check
Indeed.
with you, Israel, to confirm that this road you're showing us now is the same road that we saw completely broken yesterday. Is that it?
Absolutely,
wow.
Absolutely. Now, I do understand your question and the surprise in the tone of your question. Indeed, this was the same place where we were 2 days ago. This was the same bridge that caused horrendous traffic for Lagosians 2 days ago. Coming in from the mainland this morning into this area, it's been really, really smooth. There was no traffic. When we got here, the pace of work is simply outstanding. Like I did say earlier on, the minister will be here much later, and it's looking like this bridge might be open to traffic much later today.
Just
so
to confirm, you're saying it's looking like.
Yeah, go ahead.
But do we have any official confirmation that the bridge might be open today?
So there are no explicit confirmation for that to happen, but on confirmed report from some of the engineers here say, well, they've done the work already, and it seems like it will be open today. So we're keeping tabs on that lead to get that complete story. Sunday is someone who works at Akpoti-Uduaghan, just close to the Independence Bridge. Well, he joins us here now to give us his take on the pace of work here, because he experienced what happened here the other day. Sunday, join me now. So let Lagos also hear from you what this means to you.
All right. Good day. My name is Sunday. I worked at Akpoti-Uduaghan. I'd like to express my concern regarding the gridlock that we faced at the start of this project. It wasn't easy because despite the fact that it was announced, but then there was no provision as to alternative routes to take. So on the first day when we resumed work, it wasn't easy for everyone because having to resume on the first day and you were late to work, and even despite the fact that it was announced. So even at the close of work, people found it difficult to get to their destination.
So how do you feel now with this?
All right, I feel that the government is doing well because they saw what we experienced, and I'd like to thank Minister of Works, that's Mr. Dave, for ordering the immediate reopening of this Independence Bridge for easy access and to ease the movement to work.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, there you go. So, GOJ, Joe, Benga, and Olive, this is exactly what the situation is. The fast pace of work here that you can see is simply amazing. So, well, fingers crossed, just maybe, this will be open today. The minister did say 3 days, but just maybe less than 3 days.
All right. Israel, thank you so much for joining us, for bringing us good news. Maybe we should change your name to Gabriel. Because you do bring good news. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Israel.
much, Israel.
We're now joined in the studio to review the newspapers by journalist Habib Haruna. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Habib Haruna.
I think the first thing is for you to react to that.
Yeah. I mean, Japanese efficiency in Nigeria.
I think it's a two-way traffic. We all saw the way and manner the thing was managed 2 days ago. There was no synergy between the federal government and Lagos State government. I was thinking that Lagos State government will be more involved in this kind of major project, major link road, linking VI to Island. It was not well managed. But thank God, because Lagosians will not keep quiet. Lagosians cried out. The government now decided to be more responsive, and we saw the governor yesterday, he apologized for what happened. So what we are saying now is something that a product of that kind of synergy with the federal government. It's
Who should take credit for this?
Pardon?
Who should take credit for this?
There's nothing like credit here. Gentlemen. The writing was not done. I'm pretty sure. And now they're doing the right thing. Just they should be commended.
Okay, but who should take responsibility for the one that happened?
Both of them, both the state government and the federal
So
government.
if both of them can share responsibility, why?
But I will lay more blame on the doorstep of the state government. Okay. Because even if the federal government is coming to your town to do something, you have to take over the project. You have to take charge and make sure that people in your state, residents, citizens, are not adversely affected.
Absolutely. All right. Congratulations to all of us. That's really exciting news. That's a great way to start the show this morning. But let's start off with the first paper, the Nigerian Tribune, and on the front page, how Trump's new tariffs will affect Nigeria. This was an ongoing conversation yesterday. Another 15 killed in Plateau communities. Amotekun busts visa, kidnap syndicate in Ondo, arrest 61 suspected kidnappers. other criminals and rescue 72 from captivity. Uromi, Edo, Kano leaders have taken action according to Defense Headquarters. Kidnappers exposed us to military rockets, General Siga says. We were kept on mountain with hyenas, snakes, and scorpions. Wow. Natasha survives recall as INEC rejects petitioner's bid, says constitutional requirements not met, and I'll probably like you to start with that, but let me take the other two headlines. Anambra 2025, 11 aspirants seek APC, Labour Party, PDP tickets to confront Soludo. NNPCL board, LND accuses Tinubu of ethnic bias in appointment. Let's start with Senator Natasha surviving the recall.
Well, I'm a journalist and I should be independent and unbiased in my views. But I'm a fan of that woman, Natasha. I like people that are independent, people that are vociferous in what they want, in their principles. You know, that woman. If you look at the history and antecedent of that woman, apart from the fact that she's very beautiful, you know, person, what she's fighting for is for the betterment of our people, for constitutionalism and democracy. You know, I was thinking that because I had an opportunity to call for my friends in INEC that you guys should do the right thing. In this case, do the right thing. You see, democracy is not a destination anywhere. Even in America, it's the person of democracy. Democracy is a journey. You fall down, stand up, you know, but along the line, you get there, slowly by slowly. What we saw yesterday, and I commented to say, because there's no way they can fulfill those requirements, It's it's something that is very difficult. Many line mines on the road. So, and there's no way 2,000 people will have signed a petition.
Well, thankfully, we had the
addresses and signature. It's virtually
yes.
impossible.
I think we were corrected on that earlier today when we had a representative from INEC who explained to us that it wasn't the over 200 signatures, that all they needed was a cover letter of the representatives, I think about 5 of them.
Of the
local government representatives with their addresses and signatures. So I think that laid that
a difficult process. And it will be difficult for them to follow the continual process and arrive at that kind of conclusion.
But do you think
to satisfy Nigerians. Pardon?
Do you think that this is the end, or you think they'll try again?
No, they will try again, but you can be sure that Natasha is ready. So already. Yeah, you see, he's a fighter. They have gone through this route before. To get to that Senate, it defeated those people.
Now, seeing the images
despite the attempt to stop her. So I think it may not be the end of the matter.
Seeing the images of her homecoming and seeing the genuine love that was shown to her by her constituents, and also this 250,000 people that allegedly signed her petition. How do you juxtapose? Were those people at home or they didn't come out for the homecoming? How do you juxtapose the two? Because there's a contradiction here.
No, I was telling you guys last week that what you are saying in Kogi is abracadabra. you watch on YouTube the video of Dabo, the guy that was removed, the former Senate Senator from Adamawa.
Yeah.
Dramatic going on in that Senate. You know, I'm not particularly comfortable with the leadership of Senator Godswill Akpabio. He was a friend of mine when he was governor. You know, I'm not comfortable with the way he's managing the Senate. Even if you are from the ruling party, there should be independence and interdependence in the legislature and executive. That is the way democracy works. That is the way Nigeria can benefit. But when you are too much of an appendage,
extension of the executive.
Absolutely, that's what we're seeing. Look at the voice vote. The voice vote to validate the position of emergency rule in River State. No, that is no way to promote democracy. And this man is the head of a major plank of democracy in this country. He's not doing too well. So I think what we saw, the man he defied them with all the odds. She went to Kogi State. That these are my people. You cannot deny me from going there. And when we all saw it, they were not bought. How many is you going to buy? They came out, they fought in their eyes, their faces, and these guys were ready.
Well, others have pointed and said she's a lawbreaker and she doesn't have respect for constitutional authority.
Take her to court. And Nigerians are watching. So this era of people try to do things unconstitutionally, illegally. I think it's gone in Nigeria. Anything you have seen, people are ready. Without social media, all the stories 2 days ago, the numbers will not be so high. But social media is what is amplifying all these things. And people in government, authority, they are conscious of that.
I mean, Mr. President.
Believe me, they're telling you other things, but I'm telling you, both of them are my friends.
Minister,
they are conscious of that, and are aware that people are not happy with what they are doing.
Minister Dave Umahi did confirm that, after the president saw images and visuals of coming out of Lagos, he ordered him to fly to Lagos the next day.
All right. Anyway, let's take a look at the Punch. Let's see another paper very quickly. The Punch newspaper. I'd just like to take one story. I'd like you to react to it. Foreign trips. That's at the top there. Foreign trips, page 42. Opposition slams Tinubu Shetima for wasteful spending. The president is out for 2 weeks.
Bonjour, Mr. Bibaruna.
It will be difficult for me to, if I was the immediate advisor of the president, to defend his incessant foreign trips. After 2-3 months, we are going to France.
He's been to France 5 times, just to put this in
So
perspective.
you know why he's going.
Since
So it's
2023.
difficult for me on a working visit. It's difficult for me to defend it, because most Nigerians are not too convinced of the value this thing is bringing to the table for Nigerians. You went to France, your vice went to Senegal. It happened before. When the president traveled out, the vice also traveled out. So these things, you cannot reconcile these things to say this is for our benefit. So I think they should find a way they can do better.
Okay, let's take a call from Olaleye from Lagos. Good morning, Olaleye. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead with your comment. Good morning. Please turn down the volume of your TV set. Your audio is a bit... Olaleye, I'm sorry about that. Your audio is really poor.
Able to take that call.
Yes, and just for subsequent callers, the calls we're going to take, please make sure you turn down the volume of your TV set so that we can have a proper conversation. All right.
Yes, he was reacting to the foreign trips.
Yes.
If you were the media, what would you have done?
That's what I said. It will be difficult for me.
Because you can't lie.
Justify it.
He needs to rest.
Rest. You cannot rest in Nigeria.
You think governing a country like Nigeria is easy?
You can rest in Nigeria. Who does that? In which country? As you travel to the country.
We have 36 states.
There's traffic in Lagos.
To France. Looking for 2 weeks to France. It's difficult for me to be justified.
But you know how we excuse things in this part? We say, he's not the first to do it. Former President Buhari used to go to London. He just chooses to pay his work expenses to France.
They can do better. They can find a way around it. Must we go to France? Must it be France? The former president was always going to London. And this new one is going to France.
Are you French?
Maybe the next one will be going to Germany. So it's not a good precedent at all. It's not.
Okay.
I remember one supporter, it just reminds me of a supporter of the government on social media. Nigerians are complaining that spaghetti has gone from 300 to 1,000 plus. And it said, must you eat spaghetti? Are you Italian?
That picture.
So in the same breath, must you go to France? Are we French? Bonjour.
Okay. I don't know if there's any other story, because I would probably like us to touch very quickly on Trump's tariff. There's a big story we're seeing here. How Trump, on the Nigerian Tribune, how Trump's new tariffs will affect Nigeria. On the Punch, Trump's tariff threatens $10 billion U.S. Nigerian trade. We're seeing here that the U.S. has introduced tariffs that sort of correspond to duties imposed by other countries on American goods. So here in Nigeria, for example, we used to have 27% tariff. It's now 14%. So let's talk about the implications, the broader implications of this. It would seem that he's prioritizing America. This is for their benefit, but how is Nigeria going to then cope? Is it maybe time for us to talk about looking for other trade partners? But we'll come back to that conversation. We have a call from Abuja. Good morning. Thank you for calling, Dina.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
All right. So I just want to share my thoughts on what's going on in Lagos. My heart goes out to everyone in Lagos.
Thank you. Rest of mind wants to finish people in Abuja.
We are not experiencing that in Abuja at the moment, but it is painful that those in government, they travel out and they see good things out there, and they cannot come back to Nigeria and make life easy for Nigeria. Must we suffer before we get it right?
All right.
Thank you
Dina,
very much.
thank you very much for calling.
Thank you. The croissant in Togo, in Senegal, is not as good as the croissant in Paris.
No. Ce n'est pas bon. You don't say that.
What is going on with this?
Bonjour.
But yes, a valid point there. Why not go to other African countries?
That's a French man in your studio.
No. This one is a fake Frenchman. Even though everybody in his family speaks French, it's the only fake Frenchman. But let's talk about the implications of what this might mean. We're seeing that in terms of export industries that will be affected, agriculture, crude oil, because if we're seeing an increase in tariff, we might see maybe it would definitely affect our export here. So what are your thoughts about this, and how can we better prepare ourselves, so we're not as dependent?
That's a fine question, before now, most major economies in the world are expecting this tariff to be imposed by Trump. He said it, he signaled it, that I've been imposing a certain percentage of tariff to the world economy that will not be treated fairly. He described it as Liberation Day in America. And there was a road gathering to celebrate it in the prompt way. Trump has a way of doing his things, I'm not his fan, and I think it's a major problem to the world. But on this question you were asking, what do we export to the US? Most economies were prepared. Europe, Asia, for example, look at India, look at even Vietnam, Malaysia, they were prepared. India were prepared. How are we prepared? Did we see any our finance minister, our agri minister coming out to tell the Nigerians, don't worry, we are ready. Anything they impose, we try and manage it. Can we retaliate as other countries are doing, imposing their own tariff? We cannot, because we are not ready. We are not stabilized. We are not strong enough. Our only commodity that's giving us foreign exchange is oil, under the influence and control of the world, of global market. Cannot control anything. So we are at the receiving end of any tariff imposed by France, by Trump, or other countries. So what I will do is I will expect the petroleum minister, aided by the NNBC MD,
the new one,
the finance minister and the agri minister, to come and tell Nigerians what are the effects of this 14% tariff imposed on Nigeria by Trump.
So we're not covered.
Because we're going to feel it adversely. We cannot retaliate.
What happens to the African Growth Opportunities Act?
This man was not recognized those things.
So it's
been trashed. Has his own idea of running things, running his show. He runs his show and he's enjoying it.
But
even though the world economy lost about 2.4 trillion. The worst ever since 2020.
His trade minister has advised that people should not retaliate. They should just take it.
His own trade minister, and not our own. So we want our own people that manage our economy. Let us know the effect of those things, both on the government
and on individuals and businesses.
All right, we have Prince from Port Harcourt calling. Prince, good morning.
Morning.
Go ahead, please.
The question I have is this. Are we sure the government, the present government, really made anything good for us in this country? Because I've never seen a government that will be run by the president and vice, and the president will be leaving the country without giving the vice the authority to govern when he's no longer there for 14 days. And the following day, after he left, the vice president now left for another country, leaving the country whole. As we are now today, I won't have anybody governing us in this country. So we are on a crossroad. Only God Almighty will save this country from total collapse. If no one would have said there was no governance at all. What we are here is just a bundle of people who want to run this country down. They have no good thinking for this country. That's my take.
Thank you very much
Talking about the vice
for
president
joining.
who has gone to Senegal as well, the president France, vice president Senegal, both have francophone, French speaking, and of course a little maybe we're going to have a French syllabus added to Nigeria.
Another official language.
Maybe.
Bonjour.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as we wrap up that conversation about the tariff again, just to talk about the fact that it is important. I think that this is a call we're putting out there. It's important that we get an address of some sort, a detailed explanation as to what the impact of this increase in tariff, will cost Nigerians. We are a very largely import-dependent economy. 2% of our GDP is, dependent on exports to the US. Exactly. So we're very vulnerable. Let's see what this will mean, and we can then know how to tighten our seatbelt. The next, I wanted to ask something.
Yes, the next question, I believe,
please go ahead.
is the Daily Independent newspaper. I will sign condolence register of those who wish me dead, Wike. I mean, if you go on social media, it's beyond toxic. You need to see the way people were vituperating and wishing evil and harm to this man. At what point does it go beyond politics, or it's all fair and good in politics, like they say? What do you make of this culture of, everybody just has, they feel nothing good comes out of government, all politicians are criminals, and it's just insults and insults. We can't even have civilized conversations anymore.
You see, Nigerians always believe, Nigerians are always their brother's keeper. But politics is a different ball game. And the way and manner people see Wike, people don't see him as most Nigerians don't see him as somebody that is honorable. They believe that the man is always interested in destabilizing things, particularly in River State, and they believe that he has been hiding under the umbrella of the presidency to do all this to perpetrate these things. So he's not too popular among Nigerians. And if you not extrapolate that at the context, that is what we are seeing
play out.
That is the feelings you are seeing. That is the comments you are seeing. Most Nigerians will not wish him dead. I don't think so. But some.
They do. We were seeing some of their tweets. People were saying there that they hope he doesn't read. So many vile tweets.
Just mean that the man should be more careful. He should be more circumspect in the way he plays politics.
Okay. All right. Okay. As quickly as we can, very, very short story. The Afenifere rejects National Assembly bill on indigenship by marriage. And I want you to talk about that. Part of, the bill had passed the second reading, I believe, where they are pushing to say that people who have stayed in a particular environment or quarters for more than 10 years can claim indigenship. Afenifere obviously is against it. Do you think that this will be helpful in reuniting Nigeria? Because we are very divided along ethnic lines.
Let me tell you something. I went to university in Kano. I've stayed with my brother for 2 or 3 years. And I realized one thing. It will be difficult to break up this country. There are many people that are intermarried. I tell you. For example, look at the former SGF boss, Mustafa. But Mustafa is from Adamawa State. His wife is from Osun State. His in-law, they're from the East. So this is
but then what would now be the official definition of an indigene? So they say, what state am I? I was born and brought up in Lagos State. Yes. I've lived in Lagos all my life. Shouldn't I be able to say I'm from Lagos State?
If you look at the people that went to Lagos State University, there are many Igbos there that are born in Lagos, and they were not denied admission.
But can they claim?
No, we are not going to that stage yet.
Because that's what they're pushing for with this bill.
When will we get to that stage? In the United States, the Bush family, for example, Jeb Bush was governor of Florida. His brother was governor of Texas.
And US president.
So we're not yet. You think we're not right for that?
No, not that we're not right. We're not advanced to that stage yet. It will happen. But I believe if people are making noise, and it's going to be divide. No.
Well, the bill has been passed for a second reading, so we're going to just keep following up.
So you can choose where you want to marry for if you want the citizenship.
Exactly. So if I think now that I want to be a Yoruba woman.
Anywhere you are, you're free to behave as a citizen, as an indigene. And it was also saying that the governors and the traditional rulers should treat Nigerians anywhere they are as indigenous.
2023 elections revealed, if not for anything, how grossly divided we are, and how everybody's
It's
like,
the
oh no,
politicians.
don't stay here, oh, this is our own state.
People
oh,
are
this is
not
our...
dividing us politicians. Nigeria are not divided.
Right, okay.
I'm telling you, Nigeria,
we have to go now.
I'm sure this conversation...
should not be divided by the, not allowed to be divided by the politicians.
Okay. Yeah. Habib Haruna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
That's right. Let's go straight to our man who is on ground right now. He'll be joining us. Jamil Mabai joins us, and he's got a report for us. Let's cross over to him. Good morning to you, Jamil. Can you hear us? Okay, we're trying to establish connection. We almost thought we had him there, but then again.
Okay.
All right, Jamil, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. So go ahead. What's the update?
Have you gone back to school?
Yeah, okay. As you can see, the classes, the holidays, the students are still, on holidays, and the full school resumes on Monday. Most of the schools, or the reopening of schools, is happening on Monday. And, at the beginning, prior to Ramadan, the state government had to close virtually all schools in the state, with the exception of SS3 and the JSS3 students who will be writing their WAEC and JSS exams. And the reason was because the state government says it's fasting. Some of the teachers had to need some rest. And there were a lot of concerns from stakeholders and some of the schools, especially private schools, who run on a tight budget, and they have a certain calendar they go by. And so this is one of the schools. This is a private school. It's called the Ballet. And this is one of the classrooms is still empty. But with me here is the school principal, who will be answering some of our questions. Mr. Principal, can you come? So how can this break, the Ramadan break, how has that affect your school activities?
Well, even though we're a private school, we still run under the ministry. So by the beginning of the session, when we got hold of the calendar, we realized that this was going to happen. This is not the first time. So we took advantage of other terms that were going to be longer than this, especially first term. It was 16 weeks. And so we arranged our syllabus in a way that some of the second terms were already covered in first term.
So how do you intend to cover for the gap? Ramadan was a full month, 4 weeks, and most of your students, you have little children in nursery and primary. How do you intend to catch up with the lessons? And given the fact that as soon as you resume, exam will start, how do you intend to catch up?
Well, as I said earlier, we already put that in place internally. So we were able to cover most things that are needed to be covered. And so the exams will be based on what the students have been taught. Because
of the timing, some of the parents were not happy with the break, given the fact that, their children, some of the little children were not fasting. So they couldn't see the rationale behind this holiday. Have you had these complaints from some of the parents?
No, not really, because even though the little ones are not fasting, the parents would be fasting at that time. And so it might not be easy for them to bring these kids. And as you said earlier, teachers too needed that rest, of which most of our teachers are Muslim teachers. So they needed that time for the Ramadan.
Okay, and this is just the principal, where I asked some questions. But the thing is, Katsina is a conservative state. And most of the school owners and the school teachers are Muslims. And I think that was one of the rationale behind the break. Even though some of the parents who I personally interviewed, they showed concern that they are afraid some of their students, by the time school resumes, they will forget what they were taught. And given the fact that as soon as the school resumes, exams will commence. And also taking cognizance into the Northwest entirely and Katsina entirely is one of the states with low performances when it comes to WAEC and NECO. That has also generated a lot of tension, online and from, experts saying that, going for break for full 4 weeks, it's something that is not necessarily needed in a region where they're struggling to scale up.
At this point, Jamil, thank you so much for bringing us the update. We are having a bit of challenge with your audio, but we hope that maybe in subsequent shows we can have a conversation with you. But thank you for your time with us this morning. And we apologize to our audience for that audio issue. But now let's move on to Rivers State, where women across Rivers State are rallying behind the suspended Governor Siminalayi Fubara, calling for his reinstatement. They converged in Port Harcourt, the state capital, seeking divine intervention, saying that the judiciary has been compromised by those seeking to seize control of the state. The women are adamant that the presidential declaration of a state of emergency was unjustified and should be reversed. Well, it's interesting to see that this is a call that they've been asking for. Speaking of divine intervention, I saw the clip where they were praying, and at this point, I think water has passed Gary.
Exactly.
You know,
I
don't know what
Vice
kind of
Ibas presenting the
budget. So this budget that they couldn't pass, that there was a major bone of contention between the governor and the House of Reps. Is the same one? Wow.
But what God cannot do does not exist.
Well, let's take a look.
When there was state of emergency in the north, when Boko Haram was ravaging the nation, the governors were not removed. The elected governors were there, but security was beefed up. We were going about our normal businesses. Nothing happened. All what we heard from the blues, state of emergency, which is an aberration to the provision of the Constitution. If there is any way our leaders in the past have gone astray, we are asking for God's mercy.
We don't want bloodshed, we don't want trouble, but we are pleading to the government to give us peace, restore our governor, bring him back to seat. We will thank God for them, because our governor is a peaceful man. He doesn't want trouble. That is why you see everywhere is calm. No matter the situation, Port Harcourt is calm, Rivers State is calm. The 23 local government, they are all calm and peaceful.
Physically, we cannot meet them one-on-one, but people that are in charge have gone. And right now, we are here to pray and ask God to touch their hearts, the both parties, so that there will be resolution and restoration.
There you have it. Prayers, everywhere is calm, they say. A lot of persons have spoken about if there was really a need for the state of emergency in the first place, because the state was calm, and like you said, it was calm. But update is that the sole administrator is ready to pass the budget, said the budget is ready. And this budget, he said, it would focus on key critical areas, infrastructure, education, and the likes. So then again comes the question.
Who is he passing the budget before? House of Assembly that was suspended.
Yeah, it has
Who is he presenting the budget before?
To the National Assembly.
But the National...
Yes, because
Anyway,
they would act as the River State
House of Assembly. So if we knew that the National Assembly could act as the River State House of Assembly, why did the National Assembly not step in earlier before the need to call for a state of emergency?
I guess the situation wasn't that critical then. But then the big question is, what is the timeline? How do we know that the state is ready to return suspended Governor Fubara to office?
But don't forget that the state has
metrics?
A democratically
and
elected
the State House of
governor.
Assembly. Exactly, because
this is not a democratically elected
administrator.
And so are we saying that, you see, for our viewers who are watching, it also behoves on us as journalists to ask questions. That's why we're doing it live on TV, because it's hard for a journalist to have possibly read the Nigerian Constitution, amended Act 1999, and then as journalists, we're also trying to battle with, juxtapose between what it should be and what it is not currently. Because if you have a sole administrator, what are the tenets that guards a sole administrator to perform certain tasks or jurisdiction? What's the jurisdiction within what he can actually do and what he can't do? Because if the sole administrator is now functioning as the governor of a state, then it beckons or begs for a question to say, then what happens to the democratically elected governor? Because he is under suspension, does that mean that his powers and every single thing has been, usurped or taken away?
Suspended means you can't function in your official capacity. So that's your answer there. But my grouse is, The governor was suspended for security reasons. It was relatively peaceful, very peaceful before he was suspended. It's still peaceful, and from feelers and what we've seen on the ground, it will remain peaceful. So when those Vice Admiral Ibas's tenure ends,
would you call it tenure? Would you call that? Is it tenure or something? I don't know.
His time, whatever his time or tenure is, it ends when the governor comes back into office, when the governor has been reinstated, or if the governor is reinstated.
Spend those 6 months of suspension?
Well,
if you ask us,
I don't know.
I mean, it depends. We have God answers the prayers of those women. It might come back before 6 months.
Like you said,
or
what God cannot do
does not exist.
We'll be back again on Monday. Remember that Breakfast Extra continues tomorrow.